That's from Tuesday. I just brought that.
What?
Oh, no, never mind. I brought that regional meeting thing. I thought that's what you were looking at. It's behind Phil's thing.
Oh,
Yeah, never mind. Ignore
You'll
me.
push this twice?
I think so, and then the number should start counting up, the red.
There it goes. Okay, it's going. All right, I call this meeting to order of the Clark County Board of Education Special Meeting Working Budget, September 19th, 2023 at 6:37 PM. Welcome the audience that's here today. Let's stand, have a moment of silence, followed by a pledge of allegiance. Now the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item is review of the agenda. Any questions?
make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I have a motion by Ms. Ritchie,
Second.
second by Mr. Bennett, all in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0. Next, public comments. We have no public comments. Next is Finance and Human Resource Update. Consider approval of 2023-24 working budget. Ms. Alicia Ellis.
So, hopefully you all have had a chance to review the PowerPoint. So I'll hit some highlights. And we've had a slight new development that we'll discuss.
A good development?
Well, it's a development.
Come on, Alicia.
So this is our third cycle of our budget and what we will operate on for the rest of this school year. And so we've broken it down into each fund. And on slide 4, I kind of gave you all the basic changes that have happened since the tentative budget. Good news is we rolled over more than we anticipated. A lot of that is due to, we had ESSER funds available that we spent instead of dollars that we had originally budgeted in the general fund. We do know that those dollars are now going away, but that has helped kind of increase that balance in our general fund due to that use. You all adopted the 4% tax increase to our revenue, so that brought in an additional $678,000. And then due to the increase of our property values, that made SEEK go down, because when your local effort goes up, your state effort goes down. So that decreased $380 for our SEEK. And then we had to make an adjustment of $600,000 in our indirect costs, mainly due to the sheer HVAC project that we used ESSER dollars for. So the way indirect costs work is you cannot charge indirect costs on maintenance or finance or HR or things that are directly charged that would be in what we use indirect costs for, which is that overhead type stuff, and maintenance is what indirect cost is directly. So you can't do both, can't do direct and indirect. So since we directly charged the ESSER grant for sheer HVAC, which is maintenance, operational capital type items, we can't now take indirect costs on that. So that results in about $600,000, because it's like a 14% and it's like 2.5 million that we have. So we had to back that off of what we were budgeting as far as indirect costs. So we have claimed all the indirect costs that are eligible to claim on ESSERs at this point, so I had to back that off of our budget that we thought we
Okay.
might get this year with that project. So the development that has occurred is tentative SEEK dropped last week, which I already had all of this budget stuff submitted for the presentation and calculated, and then we got our calculation from the state showing what our tentative SEEK is. And our ADA has gone down 101 students from the prior, which has been frozen. So remember, we've been frozen at a very, very nice ADA for 3 years, our 18-19 ADA, which was like 47. We were projecting we were only gonna go down to about 46, but that projection was not enough essentially. Our actual ADA that came in on our SAR report last year was like 4,500. And so, what I had in the budget, we're still another 100 kids down from that. So it's, made a result of our seats going down an additional 596,000. So we're looking more at, instead of this 380 decrease in Seek has actually gone down $976,000.
Was that based on last year's ADA?
Yes, so we're always operating on
No,
the
you're
prior.
not,
So
yep.
good news is enrollment's up this year. Percentages of ADA are already proving to be better than percentages last year. So we are gonna see an increase in Seek next year, just simply because enrollment's up in our percentages. Even if by the end of the year it ebbs and flows and percentages stay the same, enrollment's up. So you know that dollar amount's gonna go up just because of that. But
Yeah, everybody at the conferences this year's been worried about this
Yeah.
ADA because of where it's frozen.
yeah. So I'm sure there are a lot of districts in the same boat. And a year ago, I was saying, I think, Seek's gonna go down $1 million the next year. We're seeing this influx with it increasing, but we're gonna see it go down when we have to start going back to our actual ADA, because we had been frozen. So we did essentially go almost $1 million down, like we were talking over a year ago. So we saw that kind of coming, but I missed that in the sense of getting it into the budget presentation. We just kind of missed. We thought we were going to be a little bit better than we were. Unfortunately, it kind of came in less. And
So we're gonna be, really, the revenue increase is more like 250K instead of $1 million, 1.2.
yeah, so it's actually like, so if you take the 1.2 and you take off the additional 596,
Oh,
we're
that's
a
seven.
revenue increase of 658,834 is the actual revenue change from the
Okay.
tentative budget. And then expenditures,
But it's still up.
it's
Yeah,
still
that's-
up.
that's the
We're still
positive.
up from the tentative level, so good news, yes. The expenditure side, and how we've got a solution of kind of how to help alleviate this loss of Seek that we just discussed. You'll see the different, things that change from the tentative level. So the expenditure side of what we had budgeted at the tentative level, essentially, there were purchase orders that had been encumbered on last year's budget monies that we didn't get paid out by June. So it carries those forward, PO encumbrances carry forward, but that also comes out of what I kind of put in contingency per se to accommodate that budget for the expenditure. So we rolled forward $1.3 million worth of purchase orders. And then we had growth positions when we looked at our enrollment numbers at September, start of September, because we have to inform the SBDM councils by September 15th, any changes to their allocations. Well, we had, 2 schools that warranted an extra teacher and, 1 school that was right on the cusp, so we didn't give them a teacher, we gave them the dollars in section 6 instead. Because they were not quite to the level of getting another teacher, but we did acknowledge they did have increase in enrollment and needed some dollars to help fund those students in their building. So, that resulted in the 156.9 increase in the budget, and then just other budget adjustments when we had meetings with departments and things that we needed to discuss and knew had to be paid out. We had to make a few adjustments to other budgets that then resulted in the 447,000. What we're gonna suggest, and you will see next week at our board meeting, so sorry Beth, I have something else to send you. But those committed funds that we have committed, the 3.1 million that we did set asides on for roof, playground, maintenance, and furniture, we're recommending that you uncommit the 500,000 that we did for roofs, because we do not have a foreseeable situation right now that in this next school year for sure that we need roofs done. So we're gonna recommend that we uncommit that 500,000 to kind of combat this loss of Seek on this budget cycle. And then we'll kind of reevaluate next year and see where we're at.
Okay.
So essentially, I'm gonna have to decrease revenue from what you're looking at right now, which would essentially decrease our contingency balance. But if we uncommit these funds, it kind of offsets
Okay.
me not taking that out of contingency after all.
You'd be comfortable with the,
I absolutely
Committing the
would,
roof
yeah, I think,
portion.
because the next projects we're looking at are really hitting a couple more playgrounds. We saw, of course, we're tearing up playground equipment at Strode Station, and then we've got 2 others that are pretty bad at Shear, and I think Concrete are the next 2.
So those were our next moves anyway. And what we did from last year, this year, we had the 3 million, we just took it from the budget and raised it back up to 3 million. But it keeps us from dipping into our contingency, and I don't want to do that. We'll just cut back on the other end. And then if we had an emergency, you know, we could always take money out of contingency at that point, but we're not doing it right off the bat.
Right. Yeah.
And RDC's taken care of, right? Because they were having roof issues last school.
Correct, they're taken care of, and we're so confident we laid a brand new floor where it was
Right,
leaking.
exactly.
So-
And it looks
It's taken care of.
Yeah.
I just
But that's
wanted
a
to be
great, no, it's a great question, because it was
It was like half the
problem.
school year, you'd walk in and there'd be a garbage can catching
it
the
was
water. so,
embarrassing, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do have a question about RDC. Has it ever been thought of to put in swings or something like that for those kids? I know that's really random, but
Not really in my tenure. We've not thought about it, but I know Mr. Kincaid is getting ready to do some CSIP and some surveys, so we could definitely survey parents and staff. Right now, we utilize the gym and things inside the building, football field. There is an outdoor goal that they play on during field days, but we haven't done it to this point.
I mean, I know they obviously don't need a slide in the playground and all that, but you know, even adults like to swing every now and then. And with some of the issues that they have there, sometimes getting outside, getting fresh air, hopping on a swing,
Sure.
sitting there talking to your friends.
They've got a couple outdoor classroom spots in between the wings
Mm-hmm.
that they do utilize to kind of get some fresh air and some things. And then they have their ag program is put an outside garden on the backside by a sea wing. So they're growing blueberries and blackberries and some things. So they have some outdoor garden space, but there's plenty of room that we could definitely look at.
I just have noticed that some of our local parks that you see some of these older kids on the swings
Wow.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're 7th and 8th graders, but anything to let their minds go somewhere else other than trouble.
No, we could
I mean, if there's any research out there or something like that,
definitely look into it, sure.
of something that may,
Because we could put them right into our rotation. We've already got that committed money.
Yeah.
We would just
I mean,
move
just
them.
some, like I said, I don't know what would be appropriate for that age group, but
Age appropriate.
yeah, like I said, I know you're not gonna put a swing or a teeter-totter or something like that out there, cause they'll send each other flying, but
Yeah, we'll definitely take a look at it. Make sure we get Mr. Watkins on it.
that's right, get on
That's right.
Brandon,
We'll give him a peanut butter sandwich so he doesn't lose his strength.
that's right. Extra peanut butter.
All right, so the next two slides are comparison of just kind of our budget this year to the actuals for the last 4 years, and then the budget to the working budget the last 4 years as well. And so you can kind of see when you look at the very bottom, I've done a percentage of what our expenditures against our revenues were, and it's kind of like, were we better or worse than our budget projection? And you can see 3 of the 4 years we were better. So that worst year was that first hit of COVID when we just, you know, it was just kind of a crazy year, and coming off of that and having a decrease in a lot of funding that we thought we were gonna get, it just didn't happen. But it's better every year. So again, like I've said many budgeting cycles, I try to be very conservative in our budget when it comes to projecting revenues, and so we don't overextend ourselves on the expenditure side. That's purposeful so that we are not in the hole in most years.
Do we have any identified projects that will need to be worked on or discussed this year that's not in the budget?
We do not have anything that's not,
Okay.
we have like a maintenance budget if something were to come up, but not big projects, no.
Okay.
Not anything other than we've talked about with finalizing, finishing the renovation at Phoenix to get those kids moved, the daycare, the health clinic. Those are the only things that I can think of.
Because in the last year or so, I think we've done a really good job of not coming to the board and asking for projects unless there's an emergency, you know, stuff like that can't be foreseen. But I know early on, as being a board member, it seemed like we was constantly getting requests, it was like, well, why didn't we put that in the budget? Why didn't we put that in the budget? So I think you all are doing a really good job of trying to identify as much as you can,
Yeah.
things that need to be addressed and not have to come and take things out of contingency constantly, so I think you all do a good job with
We're
that.
trying,
Yeah.
trying to be better in that aspect. So where we stand in this budgeting cycle with contingency, which should still be fairly close to the 8% because we're gonna do that switch out of the committed funds. We're, cause you have to calculate food service in that too, cause we have to cover their budget if something occurs. But we're right at 8%. KDE recommends 5, we're required to have 2, so we are above that. My comfort level is more like 10, so we're a little under that, but 8's still pretty good. And that's again why we did that committed set aside, is to kind of put us in the range we need to keep contingency at and not, like you said in prior years, kind of just keep
Right.
taking out
And
of it.
then
So
maybe
we try
not-
to accommodate that kind of stuff.
Maybe next year we get closer to that 9 anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mhm.
So any questions on Fund 1, our general fund? So the next several slides, you've got all your funds, so just briefly, you can, unless you have questions, I mean, that's just a summary of where we were with our grants from the tentative to the working. The biggest change really is, even from last year, is we don't have as many ESSER dollars coming in. But you can see, even from the tentative, I do not have grants until we are told what the award amounts are. So, you know, at the tentative level in May, we don't know a whole lot, so you can see we've had 3.5 million declared at this point, for us to have 7.1 million in grants this year in our federal funding. Our district and school activities, those are generated at the school level based on collection of clubs and fees and different things, and none of that gets budgeted until they actually pay it and deposit it. One of the big ones we've been collecting recently is Chromebook fees. That's been our biggest start to the year. But construction funds, we have no projection, like in this current fiscal year, there's no construction projects. We only budget that as they're done in the fiscal year. So our debt for Fund 400, so the next slide. This is all of our bonds and the debt that we owe, which you can see it's, you know, up from the prior actual year. This is our preschool bonding that we just did. We've got additional debt payments, principal and interest. This is paid from our capital outlay and building fund. And I was projecting that we were gonna have 247.7 available in capital funds to use on something if we needed it. However, that SEEK calculation does play into these dollars, and so with that change in SEEK, it's actually gonna be 134,782 available in capital funds instead, because we're gonna lose some dollars based on that ADA change. And then Fund 51, Miss Lowry and her crew have been doing fantastic, and being back full session has just greatly rebounded Fund 51 and helped the food service department. I mean, just serving meals is, I mean, the primary.
Are we serving more meals than we did last year at this time? I know she's not here, but if you don't have to answer.
I
if you
don't wanna
know,
speak
but
on that.
it'd
I
be
think the
interesting.
revenue reflects that
Yeah,
probably
probably,
are,
yeah,
but I
that's-
don't wanna say for sure.
With the increased student population, I would think we are. And then, like you said, the
She's
revenues
also-
reflect that.
And she's all, and this budget also includes a new program she's starting. They're starting a supper program, where they feed kids after school.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
so a lot of them that will benefit from that is our athletes. You know,
Mhm.
they're gonna get a meal, a bag lunch type bag
Or
meal or
gloves or
dinner.
band or.
When do they serve that?
I think she's planning on starting that in the next week or so. She's trying to get all of that started, to start at the 1st of September, but I don't
Yeah.
think it all panned out exactly. So like the next week or so, definitely about October it should be up.
So does she serve like when school's being let out, or like later on in the afternoon, or how's that work?
I think it's like right at the end of school.
You know what it is?
Do you know the time
They
frame?
can get it at the end of the school. When school's being dismissed, they can grab the bag lunch. So
Oh.
any student can participate. It can be if they're staying for sports or activities or clubs, but it can be a student just wanting to take a meal home.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So it's just our way, instead of, of course, For a long time, you had those shared tables, so you'd have kids that would pack
Yeah.
things in their backpack. Now we're doing it at the end of the day, so they can take it home and taking care of our kids even when they're not in the building.
I think that's
Be some
awesome.
noticeable on the
Yeah.
chair table.
Yeah,
And it'll be Monday through Thursday.
Let me- okay.
Did we qualify this year for the PEBT?
I believe
Yes.
so, yeah.
Okay.
so all of our kids eat for free.
So, but I mean, they're supposed to be giving out reimbursements to parents at some point through some of these districts, and I don't know if Clark County was one of them. I've been asked about that several
It's
times.
not something that directly comes from us, it's like, they have to call and sign up and they get a card with money on it.
Okay, so
Something
it's not
they have-
something that we are, cause I know previously we used to do
They're eligible
it.
because they're students in a public school
Mhm.
and they're of age, but they have to call, there's an 800 number, it should be posted in all the schools, but they have to call and like sign up for it. and-
To get it for the summer break, cause that's
Yes.
what I think
Yeah.
this grant was for the summer break.
Yeah,
So,
I'm pretty
okay.
sure that's still operating, but they have to initiate it, there's nothing we can do on, I mean, we can give them the information if they call us, but
Right,
it's still something they're gonna have to.
so it's not just gonna pop up like it has previously.
That's a federal grant, isn't it?
It was COVID, it had to do with COVID, and so anyone, no matter your income,
Right.
qualified for it. But
Right.
now, it's no longer, COVID's no longer.
This is supposed to be, this last one was supposed to be.
I think
The end of what
Last
they had
year was
left.
the last time I got it, was last year.
Nobody's got it yet, it's supposed to
Yeah.
come out in October.
I know there is.
But I haven't gotten
something
it
with
anymore, like after last year, that was
We'll have to
it.
check with Becky. I'll
We could
make
get
a
you
note.
guys an update.
Yeah, well, nobody's got it since that time last
Yeah,
year,
that'd be
but this is
important
supposed
for
to be the
the
next
community to
one.
know.
Well, and I think what we can do from our end too is work on maybe even a flyer.
Yeah,
Just
just
to get
because I keep
information out to
getting
the
questioned
community.
about that, is-
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's something like what you're saying, Alicia, I need
Right.
to direct them to contact.
Right.
'Cause I
That's
got
what
on
we
the
have done
website.
Historically with all of it, is they had to call for it, so.
I've never called anybody, but no,
Oh.
it just popped up on the card. Did you ever call anybody?
Well,
The
I,
first time you sign up.
yeah, I had to
The
sign
very
up for
first
it.
time you should have had to have.
I never signed up for
Yeah.
anything, they just mailed me a card.
No, I had to sign up for it.
Nice.
and-
I remember Deanna doing something a long time ago when the kids were in, when it first became eligible. And she had to call or sign up online.
Yeah, I think the very first time you were, that's how I thought it, and then each year it just added the money.
I made a note here to check with Ms. Lowry.
Yeah.
so that
We'll
way we
figure it
can
out.
give you guys an update.
Yeah,
So we
just,
get that to her.
Yeah. I will. yeah,
Thank
I got a
you.
note for myself.
Yeah, no, because you're right, as a parent, it'd be vital to know that.
yeah, 'cause, I mean, I know that they're that's a big discussion right now, and it's this grant, whatever it is, hitting October, and if we get left out and everybody around us gets it, oh gosh.
So what I'm seeing is that it's certain populations that will receive it, and there would be SNAP recipients, so those are the ones that go and apply. Community eligible programs, school, or who receive free and reduced lunch at school. So it could be that we would get it. And it says that
And you have to have a district code, it
period
says.
opens on August 7th.
Well, like I said, we just. need to
Yeah,
get more
if somebody
information.
can check, I
Yeah.
just, with the
We'll make
budget,
sure.
I wanted to make sure we brought that up, because
No,
it's,
it's a great point.
Absolutely.
Nope. Nope.
Thank you, Ms. Ritchie.
Well, that is the working budget with a few adjustments, but
Yeah.
questions?
How did the other districts, have you talked to any of the other finance officers about the ADA they get hit?
Just about everybody that I communicate with, there's everybody's just gone down.
When I've been to two different superintendent cohorts and cadres in the last month, and we're actually pretty lucky, because our local revenue went up,
Yeah.
and we didn't get hit as hard. And projecting forward, because our enrollment is going up, this is probably a one-time year deal for us, but I know that superintendents across the state are trying to work with legislators to even fully fund SEEK, and then even looking at, average daily attendance versus average daily membership, ADM, because no district has gone back to pre-pandemic percentages on attendance, right? But we're actually in a lot better shape than some of the other districts. I've got superintendent friends that they don't know where they're gonna be in 3 years, if it continues to be. And then you've got larger districts that are like, we're a little bit larger, so it's not hitting us as much. You've got small districts that they don't know if they can pay bills. You know, they don't even have the cash flow to pay bills until their tax revenue comes in, from the sheriff in, November. So there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of conversations going on throughout the state of Kentucky with superintendents and trying to push, because we're in a budgeting cycle with our legislation too. So we're gonna go in and budget and see where we come out, you know, for 2 more years.
Do we get to count our kids that are on virtual?
We do. And that's one thing that we've been able to do is last year, I think we only had 20 plus kids, and this year we're up to 83.
83.
Did I not say that?
So you think 83 times 4,200 that we wouldn't have on enrollment? And again, not all that is gonna be funded through SEEK. I learned a lot in the
Right.
last conference. But you think we're getting about $3,500, $3,200 instead of the 42 really, because they're not fully funded transportation still. We're only about 70%, so none of that money's coming back to us.
That's a discussion point too, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And I tried to send you guys some information on
Yeah.
things we're really trying to push on, because we have to be a united front. We can't all tell
Keeping full
people
day
different
funded
things.
kindergarten.
Keep a full day funded kindergarten, because if they don't keep that, that's another $500,000 that we'll have to fund. Not even getting to fully funded preschool for our
Yeah.
district kids.
Yeah.
So there's a lot,
Well, I love the
Moving
virtual
into-
option that you all have kept, and
well,
that's to
I'll
see
give
it
Ms.
growing.
Fenton and Ms. Hale and Jamie Mishkeen, I mean, I'll give them a lot of credit for their work on that, and they've met with each individual family, they've planned a schedule based on the individual kid's needs, varying from one virtual class to only CTE, you know, the core, and they come in for CTE, you know, and not to ramble, but they're doing great work, even having kids that attend private school, but they're still dual enrolled with us. Because Clark County Public Schools offers a world-class education, and folks, even if they want that small classroom, there's things they can't get. Really trying to make a big push with our homebound, because even if you're homebound, you need a curriculum, it needs to be a viable curriculum. We
And
can
that's
now
just-
provide that.
Yeah.
So you can be homebound, but still kind of enrolled through our virtual option. So I think sky's the limit. I think we slow played it. I think we advertised once and got 80 kids. Cause I also don't believe in choking on an elephant if you don't know how much you can eat. So I didn't want to flood our resources. But I think moving forward, that's something we could expand exponentially. Like
Oh,
go
yeah.
from 80 to
Oh, I
hundreds.
think when COVID hit and we started talking about virtual academies, it was like, well, this will probably always be a need.
Yeah, I mean, the sky was the limit with it,
Yeah,
once,
and then-
especially for seniors and,
And
well,
nothing
the
against,
juniors.
nothing against us or any other district, but we got thrown into it with COVID and it was a disaster,
I agree.
you know, so,
I agree.
I'm glad to see it is growing.
It's
Yeah.
growing, and it's really, I mean, we call it a virtual program, but it's much more of a hybrid approach where we can meet kids' needs and families' needs.
Yeah.
Which I think supports our responsibility as a public school.
Well, and
We
some
can either
kids
do it,
just
or we
don't
can
do
get left
well in a
behind.
classroom setting.
Yep.
They need to be, so, I mean, yeah, I
And
mean,
I'd
it's
much
great.
rather them with our resources than, you know, mom, pop, grandparent at home trying to do it.
Exactly. No, good deal.
Lindsay's actually on the schedule for next week to present an update to you all on virtual.
Oh,
okay,
great.
okay, awesome,
So that way, we wanted to make sure we highlighted that, and
yeah,
Perfect.
okay,
if they're not watching, we may celebrate a couple of them maybe.
Awesome.
okay. Any other questions for Ms. Ellis? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll move.
We have a motion by Mr. Bennett, we have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Hall, in favor? Aye. Working budget passes 4-0.
Bring the gavel back.
But it was,
That's what I thought that
I looked up, like, somebody bring in a.
was. I thought Dora was getting really serious over here.
like a gnat, there's a gnat or something that was on my thing.
It's like,
My
okay.
heart pretty good right there. That's good. I enjoyed that. Get after it. That's part of it right there.
All right, the next item is internal board business. Consider approval to adjourn to executive session per KRS 61.810, paragraph 1T. Discussions or hearings which might lead to the appointment, discipline, or dismissal of an individual employee, member, or student. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
We have a motion by Ms. Ritchie.
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. Hall. All in favor?
Aye.
We are now in closed session at 7:06.
It's definitely an F.